we talk about spiritual awakening, many people imagine a tranquil experience filled with Zen moments and deep meditations. They often visualize a permanent state of bliss where everything seems to be in perfect harmony. It is as if they expected that upon reaching that point of enlightenment, everything would suddenly become clear, balanced, and simple. However, the reality of spiritual awakening rarely resembles this idealized image. What actually occurs is a whirlwind of changes, some of which may seem strange and even disturbing. These changes go beyond what we might expect, manifesting not only on an emotional or mental level, but also physically. It is as if the body itself participates in this inner transformation. Contrary to what many expect, spiritual awakening is full of ups and downs, moments of clarity followed by confusion, feelings of complete peace, but also of being completely lost. Every step we take along this path can bring something new and often unexpected. You may feel confused or even frightened by the changes you experience during your awakening. You may notice alterations in your physical appearance, your sleeping patterns, your weight, or even your facial features. You may be surprised to find yourself looking in the mirror and wondering, who is this person? Because you notice changes subtle, significant in your appearance. This is all natural. Each one of these transformations, both internal and external, is part of the process. They are signs that something is being restructured within you. These changes are necessary for you to evolve towards a more authentic and elevated version of yourself. Today, we are going to talk about the physical signs of spiritual awakening that often go unnoticed or are misinterpreted. We will understand why our body changes when we experience a deep spiritual transformation, and how these changes, far from being a cause for concern, are actually indicators that we are on the right path. You will understand that what is happening in your body is part of a larger process, a journey towards your true essence. It is essential to understand that spiritual awakening is not a destination we arrive at, but a continuous journey with its own rhythms and phases. Many spiritual traditions have created the expectation that achieving enlightenment means entering a permanent state of peace where all problems disappear. However, this vision simplifies a process that is much more dynamic and complex. Spiritual awakening is really a cycle of expansion and contraction, of clarity and confusion, of release and recalibration. Imagine that your consciousness is like the ocean. It has moments of perfect calm and moments of intense storms. But both are part of its nature, in the same way your awakening will include periods of deep connection and others of apparent disconnection, moments of intense joy and stages of darkness that seem to have no end. This cyclical nature explains why we experience physical changes during awakening. Our body is not separate from our consciousness. It is a physical expression of our vital energy when we begin to expand our consciousness, releasing old patterns and raising our vibration. The body responds by adapting to these new energetic levels. We can understand these physical changes as visible manifestations of invisible transformations. It is as if our body were an instrument that needs to be tuned to be able to transmit more refined music. Sometimes this tuning process can seem disconcerting because it involves the release of old dissonances before a new harmony can be achieved. Many people become alarmed when they begin to notice changes in their appearance or in how their body feels during a spiritual awakening. They may worry, thinking that something is wrong. However, these changes are actually signs that something is working properly. Your energetic system is beginning to release itself of accumulated blockages, allowing your essence to flow. The physical body holds a deep wisdom that our conscious mind often understands, not fully understanding when we enter an awakening process. This body wisdom is activated to support the transformation. The body begins to realign, releasing stored emotional toxins and adjust to new vibrational frequencies. Understanding the true nature of spiritual awakening helps us navigate this process with greater confidence and less fear. It allows us to see physical changes not as worrying anomalies, but as signs that we are awakening to higher levels of consciousness. They are the visible manifestation of an invisible process that began within us. The first change many people notice is an alteration in their body weight, often without following strict diets or radically changing their eating habits. The body begins to lose weight. This happens because by releasing emotional burdens and energies accumulated over years, the body also begins to get rid of physical retentions, such as excess water or accumulated fat, due to stress or unresolved traumas. It is as if the body feels that it no longer needs that additional protection or that weight it was carrying. In other cases, the opposite may occur, a temporary weight gain, especially during the initial phases of awakening. This can happen when the body is in the process of energetic reorganization and needs to anchor. Certain energies before releasing them is not a cause for concern, as it is usually a transitory phase that gives way to a renewed balance. Facial features also undergo subtle but perceptible changes. The general expression of the face may appear more relaxed and open. This happens because chronic muscular tensions that we held due to emotional patterns begin to dissolve. Years of facial expressions based on fear, anxiety, or defensiveness begin to be replaced by greater relaxation and openness. Body posture is another element that undergoes a profound transformation as we release old traumas and emotional patterns. The body begins to naturally straighten. Shoulders that used to be hunched as an emotional protection mechanism begin to open up. The spine seeks its natural alignment, and our entire physical presence begins to reflect greater confidence and authenticity. Even the skin shows visible changes during this process. It can become brighter and clearer as the body eliminates toxins and releases accumulated stress. Some people notice that chronic skin conditions begin to improve without specific external treatments, simply as a result of the internal healing process. Hair and nails can also transform, becoming stronger and more vital. This reflects a shift in hormonal balance. In the distribution of energy in the body, it's as if all the bodily systems begin to function more efficiently when they are not overloaded by the weight of unprocessed emotions. All of these physical changes are manifestations of a deeper process. The body, in its wisdom, is releasing stored traumas and dense energy accumulated over the years, often without us consciously realizing it. What happens is that, as we move forward in this journey of self-knowledge and healing, the body begins to react, adapts, reorganize, and purify itself in unexpected ways. As the process of spiritual awakening progresses, one of the most noticeable and often surprising changes is the transformation that occurs in the eyes. We are not simply talking about a change in physical appearance, but a transformation that goes much deeper. The eyes, considered since ancient times as the windows to the soul, begin to reflect the profound internal changes that are taking place when a person experiences a spiritual awakening. Something happens in their energetic field. The dense energy accumulated for years begins to be released, and with it, the emotions and traumas that have been stored inside us during this process. The eyes can become brighter, more alive, almost as if they were waking up from a long sleep. This brightness in the eyes can be interpreted not only as a physical change, but as a reflection of the purification that is occurring at a deeper level. The color intensity and vivacity of the eyes can change, sometimes in subtle ways, other times in a more striking way. What stands out is that the eyes begin to transmit a powerful energy expressing authenticity, peace, and a direct connection with the essence of the person. This is difficult to explain, but I'm sure you've met someone with that brightness in their eyes. I'm sure that at some point you coincided with a person who emitted a different energy, a subtle brightness. Jacobo Grinberg, in his research on consciousness and perception, propose that our internal states alter the way we perceive and relate to reality. This perhaps helps us understand why our eyes change during spiritual awakening. It's not just that we are seeing differently, but our way of participating in reality is fundamentally transforming. The brightness, vivacity, and clarity that arise in the eyes are one of the most beautiful ways to witness the evolution of someone during their spiritual awakening. This phenomenon is a direct consequence of the healing of traumas. We carry all the unprocessed memories, past pains, and limiting beliefs that we have created over the years. When we begin to free ourselves from these burdens, a true cleansing occurs, and this cleansing is reflected in the brightness that our eyes begin to radiate. The gaze becomes more alive, deeper, and there is a feeling that when you look at someone who has gone through this process, you are looking directly into their soul. This happens because when someone goes through a deep spiritual transformation, the energy around them becomes clearer, lighter, and purer, and the eyes are like mirrors of the soul, begin to reflect this internal clarity. I would like to pause and ask you, have you noticed these changes in your eyes or in the eyes of people close to you? Perhaps you have perceived a different brightness in your gaze after going through an intense period of personal transformation. Or perhaps you have observed how the gaze of a loved one has become clearer and deeper over time. Share your experience in the comments. If someone is going through this process, your words could help them free themselves from fear. Spiritual awakening is not only limited to external or physical changes, but it deeply touches who we are, in our essence, altering our perception of ourselves and the world around us. One of the most powerful and at the same time bewildering transformations of this process surrounds us. It is a phenomenon known as ego death. But what does ego death really mean? It is not about the personality disappearing completely, but rather a process of profound transformation. The ego is that set of beliefs, identities, and defenses that has shaped our perception of who we are during awakening. This construct begins to disintegrate, revealing more authentic aspects of ourselves. This process can be extremely uncomfortable because it challenges us to let go of the way we've always seen ourselves and how we have constructed our lives in relationships, work, and other spheres. During this ego dissolution, personal identity undergoes profound changes. What once seemed like a solid and well-defined version of oneself begins to crumble, leaving a temporary void. The feeling of not knowing who we are or not understanding our place in the world can be overwhelming. Many people experience moments of insecurity and disorientation during this phase. Thoughts such as, if I am no longer that person who always defined themselves by their external achievements, then who am I now? May arise. This feeling of loss is real and represents a real challenge. However, it is crucial to understand that this process of ego death is essential for spiritual growth. When the ego dissolves, space opens up for the true essence of being to manifest. It is not about losing identity, but about allowing a more authentic version of oneself to emerge. This ego death is metaphorical. After all, we need the ego. It is our vehicle. What generates discomfort is generally the resistance to this transformation. When we learn to accept the changes and trust that we are being guided towards a truer version of ourselves, the process becomes more fluid. This momentary emptiness, this feeling of being lost, is only a temporary and necessary phase for something new to emerge and more aligned with our true nature. If you are experiencing this feeling of disconnection with who you were before, you should know that it is part of a process of cleansing and releasing. The old self was tied to limiting ideas and behavior patterns that no longer serve the new path you are walking. This is a normal process, and although it can be challenging, it is also a sign that your awakening is occurring in a deep and transformative way. With the spiritual awakening comes a new perception of the world around us as the inner journey deepens. Both physical and energetic sensitivity begin to expand, revealing dimensions of reality that were previously hidden. The first sign of this heightened sensitivity is usually the perception that you feel everything with greater intensity. Emotions, both your own and those of others, become more evident. You can notice someone's joy even before they smile or perceive another person's discomfort without a word being spoken. This ability to feel the emotions of others can expand to such an intense level that it seems almost impossible not to absorb the vibrations of the environment you find yourself in. This new sensitivity can be both a blessing and a challenge. Sensing the world so deeply can be overwhelming, especially if you are not yet fully aligned with your own energy. The emotions of others and the energies around you do not disappear. They are always present. But as you deepen your connection with awakening, your energetic perception also expands. Some say that the opening of the chakras, those energy centers located along the body, plays a fundamental role in this process. As the chakras open, your ability to feel and perceiving the energy around you grows, increasing your spiritual awareness. This heightened perception is not limited to human emotions. You also begin to feel energetic flows in environments, situations, and even in the objects around you. Where before everything seemed static or inert, you can now feel an energetic dynamic, a pulse. The energy of a room, a meeting, or a conversation begins to be felt with greater clarity. This new level of perception can be revelatory, allowing you to see beyond appearances and understand the invisible forces that shape reality. However, this sensitivity, if not managed well, can be exhausting. You may feel overwhelmed by the emotions and energies that you begin to absorb, and this is where the practice of discernment becomes essential. It is not about blocking or ignoring these energies, but rather learning to manage them in a healthy way. This process involves establishing energetic boundaries and strengthening your ability to discern which energies you wish to absorb and which ones you need to let pass. It is a practice of self-awareness and self-care. By understanding what is happening around you and within you, you can transform this sensitivity into a true strength, using it as a powerful tool that gives you deeper insight into reality and allows you to form more authentic connections with people and your environment. With all this transformation comes one of the most significant changes: increased spiritual clarity. This clarity is not just about seeing the world more clearly, but about perceiving reality in a completely new way. What once seemed confusing, blurry, or distorted is now revealed in greater detail, like a window being cleansed, allowing light to enter and illuminate the true essence of what you are observing. Your intuition, previously muffled by distractions and dense energies, becomes sharper. You begin to perceive people's intentions more easily, picking up on nuances you previously overlooked. This heightened perception goes beyond words and actions. You begin to feel with increasing intensity what is behind what is said or done. Whether someone is being sincere or deceptive, you will notice this refinement of perception also influences your understanding of the larger systemic structures around you. You begin to perceive the unseen dynamics that govern social, political, and economic systems, seeing with greater clarity the forces at work beneath the surface. It's not just about seeing what's in front of you, but to understand the interconnection between everything that surrounds you, connecting the dots of a reality that previously seemed fragmented. Spiritual awakening is a unique journey for each person, full of physical, emotional, and energetic transformations that can be both challenging and liberating. If you are experiencing these changes in your body and in your being, remember that they are signs that you are evolving towards a more authentic version of yourself. Trust in the process, even when it seems disconcerting. Your body and your spirit are working in harmony to elevate you to a new level of consciousness. If you got here, receive, as always, a big hug on behalf of the entire team. Thank you very much for giving us your company one more day. See you soon.